It is one of the strongest military forces in the Middle East and boasts one of the world's most advanced and technologically sophisticated militaries, in addition to its state-of-the-art rocket interception system, Iron Dome. Achieving and maintaining this military might cost Israel a lot of money, however. So, where does it get its funding? Enter the United States of America, Israel's closest ally, an ally that has been giving Israel billions and billions of dollars every year and over many years to finance its military ambitions. And recently, in spite of Israel's brutal attacks on Palestine's Gaza that have already killed 14,000 Palestinian civilians, Washington reasserted its unconditional and ironclad support for Tel Aviv and its military operations.
We're going to make sure Iron Dome continues to guard the skies over Israel. We're going to make sure other hostile actors in the region know that Israel is stronger than ever and prevent this conflict from spreading.
Reports suggest that the Pentagon has secretly increased military aid to Israel, fulfilling requests for items like 155mm shells, bunker-buster munitions, and interceptors for Israel's Iron Dome missile and laser-guided missiles, a cue that critics say is Washington's green light for Israel to continue its bombing campaign in Gaza.
Providing weapons that knowingly and significantly would contribute to unlawful attacks can make those providing them complicit in war crimes.
In November, the U.S. House of Representatives approved a $14.3 billion military aid package for Israel. From this, $4 billion is dedicated to replenishing Israel's Iron Dome and David Sling missile defense systems, and to pay for the military gear that is set to be transferred to Tel Aviv from the U.S.'s stockpiles. The package does, however, face some challenges in the Senate, as well as a rather unlikely veto from President Joe Biden. And in U.S. Congress, some congresspeople are voicing concerns about whether Washington can increase defense aid to Israel without risking the aid it seeks to give Ukraine, for which President Biden recently requested $61 billion. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine began on February 24, 2022, the U.S. has already provided Kiev with $44.2 billion in military assistance. U.S.-Israel ties have been strong since the foundation of the State of Israel in 1948, when President Harry Truman became the first world leader to recognize the newly established nation. Since then, the U.S. has supported Israel with more than $130 billion in bilateral assistance, and between 1950 and 2020, nearly 80% of Israel's imported arms came from the U.S. As of October 2023, the U.S. Foreign Military Sales Program, facilitating the sales of military equipment and services directly to foreign governments, registered 599 active cases between the U.S. and Israel, totaling $23.8 billion in value, according to the U.S. Department of State. And today, Tel Aviv is one of the biggest beneficiaries of U.S. foreign aid, partly because of a record $38 billion deal across a 10-year period signed in 2016 between the two countries. The 2016 agreement is the third of its kind, following similar agreements signed during the George W. Bush and Bill Clinton administrations. You water my plants, and I'll water yours. This is the relationship between the U.S. and Israel. Israel depends on the U.S. for military aid and security, and the U.S. considers Israel its strongest ally in the Middle East, which is home to strategic waterways and oil reserves that the U.S. depends on for its own national and geopolitical ambitions. The relationship between the two allies was initially forged as they both shared a common goal of countering the influence in the then Soviet Union in the region. Washington did have another ally in the Middle East: Saudi Arabia. However, after the 9/11 attacks, the U.S. leaned more heavily on Israel for support based on the mutual commitment to democratic values both countries touted. In 2020, Israel spent $500 million of its annual $3.8 billion U.S. budget specifically on missile defense systems, including its Iron Dome and other systems designed to intercept incoming rockets. After Qatar, Israel is the biggest spender on its military per capita in the world. In 2022, for example, Israel allocated 4.5% of its GDP to military spending, surpassing the spending of both Russia and the US, which allocated 4.1% and 3.5% of their GDPs on their militaries, respectively. Thanks to U.S. funding, Israel has not only acquired advanced military equipment, but has also developed its military and surveillance technologies and invested in extensively training all branches of its military. Outside of buying weapons from U.S. manufacturers, Israel has also ramped up its manufacturing capabilities and is now the 10th global arms exporter in the world. More than 14,000 people have been killed in Israel's onslaught on Gaza. The U.S. providing weapons to Israel and giving it a carte blanche to continue its bombing campaign has sparked some frustration from within the U.S. Congress and growing outrage from international community at large.
Hastanelerin, ibadethanelerin, okulların, mülteci kamplarının, ambulansların bombalandığı, güvenli denilen bölgelere göç eden sivillerin katledildiği, tarihte eşi benzeri görülmemiş bir barbarlıkla karşı karşıyayız.
And the reality is that the United States is the largest backer of military aid to Israel. And if Israel is not willing to do what we are asking Israel to do, which is follow international humanitarian law, in my mind it is clearly not doing that, then I think it is time for us to say we are not supporting offensive military support for Israel.
As the death toll in Gaza continues to mount, cracks are reportedly starting to appear in the 75-year partnership between the two countries. So, will the U.S. heed the growing call for it to rein in on Israel after all of these years of unconditional, ironclad support?